So situated near the tip of Africa is where we're from, South Africa. It's probably closer to Antarctica than it is the US, the UK, or Europe. Add to that various levels of sanctions in the 60s and 70s, hardcore sanction in the 80s, which lasted 10 years, plus the conservative government. The birth of the alternative culture was more a trickle born out of rebellion a few years after the initial onslaught in the north.
Despite political and social unrests and an economy that's never actually recovered, the advent of the internet brought an accessibility to the scene, which helped it grow. So we often get asked what the scene is like, and we've gone to the trenches to get the lowdown.
And on screen we've got Patrick Davidson, guitarist for Mind Assault, founder and curator for Metal for Africa. We've got John Morrow, guitarist from Margo and an independent reviewer. We've got Reegan Buisson, vocalist for Facing the Gallows, and Carlos Sanches, vocalist for Deadline.
And a wild Lou de Pisani appears from The Drift, Knave, and MK Undergrond.
Do people tend to, within the alternative scene, do people tend to look for new stuff, or do they tend to go back to what they already know?
Look, we're not many metalheads in South Africa, but we're very divided, right? So if you're an old school metalhead, there's no way in hell you want to find new music outside sort of the older genres that you enjoy, like power metal, speed metal, old school metal. Like 97% of old school metalheads I know are so stuck in their ways, and they're just waiting for the new AC/DC or the new Metallica, even though it's not going to be Ride the Lightning. There's so many new bands whipping out way better music. They'll be so stuck in that. And then you get a lot of the younger guys that are into their core and their deathcore and stuff like that, and they don't even view a lot of the older bands as heavy metal. There's that term that gets thrown around that hurts my heart so much, dad rock. They're called Twisted Sister that and Metallica that. And just like the old school metalheads will be looking for old school metal, the newer guys will be looking for sort of newer core bands or sort of punk stuff. And there's been quite a big crossover now with those genres. And the same as in the death metal community and the black metal community. I just find that as much as they do want to discover, or we as fans want to discover new music, we just want to discover new music within the confines of of what we know is safe. I get that, I'm the only one in my band who really likes all genres of heavy metal, and I get it a lot in my band. We have all these massive arguments. I come to the band room and I've discovered a band like, for example, Code Orange, that's blown my mind this year. And I can't play it to anyone because they've been waiting for the AC/DC album. I heard the new song for 2 minutes and I was like, surely they've released this in 1990 and 1995 and 1998. And it's like, oh, guys, and you can't, and it unfortunately bubbles onto our shows. Reegan will be able to confirm when Facing the Gallows plays, they've got their fans that watch them. They'll hardly have an old school metal guy watching a Facing the Gallows show. Same with us. We will play a lot to the same faces. The place will have, let's say, 150 people, but we'll have the same 25 sitting there, whilst a lot of the newer kids will walk past, So I just find, even though there's a lot of new music coming in all sorts of genres, and obviously genres are starting to become sort of a bit faded and everything, they fade into each other, I still feel that people are a bit scared to get into newer stuff.
I kind of get the sense that the youth, we were all young once. And I remember when I was in my early 20s and getting into the metal thing, it's there were subgenres of heavy metal, which like I say heavy metal, but I'm talking the umbrella metal term, not heavy metal specifically. But there were subgenres which at that time I really couldn't stomach, because they were opposing all the values which I had grown up on. And I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of the older crowd actually sits with, is this this undermining of the values, be they musical, be they ideological, or cultural, if you want to talk about subculture in that way. But what I've kind of come to realize is that a lot of the younger generations, when they come into heavier music, I think they feel a need to establish their own mark on it. And that can be quite exciting and turbulent, and for some of us older folk, bloody awful thing to experience. But what I've kind of noticed also is that every despicable, excuse my language, surge of like subgenre, it does bring out its finer acts who some decade or so later, they become the nostalgic acts. So even though we often see new styles of music come in, which we might not find immediately palatable, give it a decade. And I think we, as an older generation, we mature to that music just as well as the younger generation does tend to gradually mature to ours too.